On Monday afternoon, the leader of the opposition was approached by protesters. They called Sir Keir Starmer a traitor. They shouted about Julian Assange and about Jimmy Savile. The previous Monday, Boris Johnson said this in Parliament.
This leader of the opposition, a former Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Speaker, he spent most of his time prosecuting journalists and failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile.
This is false. Keir Starmer had no personal involvement in the decision not to prosecute Jimmy Savile. The question now is whether that statement risked Mr. Starmer's safety. No, says Minister Chris Philp.
I don't accept there is any link between the Prime Minister's reference to Keir Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions and what happened last night, which was totally unacceptable.
The Prime Minister himself tweeted, "The behaviour directed at the Leader of the Opposition is absolutely disgraceful." And Number 10 has refuted any link whatsoever between that behaviour and the Prime Minister's words. But if that's Number 10, this is the Speaker of the House of Commons.
These sorts of comments only inflame opinions and generate disregard for the House, and it is not acceptable. Our words have consequences, and we should always be mindful of that fact.
Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has also commented, tweeting that any politician choosing to weaponise online conspiracy theories against opponents knows fine well that they risk stirring up the kind of hate and abuse that Keir Starmer experienced today. Number 10 refutes this categorisation, and to the government, this is part of a broader problem which affects politicians and journalists.
That mob yesterday, they were the same mob that surrounded Michael Gove outside his department. They were the same mob that attacked Nick Watt. These are people who do not discriminate. They just hate all of us because we represent the so-called establishment.
And while the protest and its causes are debated, so too is the broader issue of whether the original claim was acceptable. Dan Hodges of the Mail on Sunday picks this up, arguing that people are missing the point. He goes on, it's not that the crazy extremists heard what Boris was saying, then decided to copy him. It's that the Prime Minister of the UK heard what the crazy extremists were saying and decided to copy them. The Savile-Starmer claim has circulated on far-right websites, but after it was used in Parliament, ministers have defended its use. They argue if Labour holds Boris Johnson responsible for all lockdown parties at Number 10, even those he didn't attend, so Keir Starmer can be held responsible for what happened at the CPS when he was in charge. For example, this is the Cabinet Minister, Brandon Lewis.
When we are looking at the fact that somebody at the top of an organisation has responsibility for what happens in it, that's the point the Prime Minister is making. I think that is a fair and reasonable point.
No doubt leaders at times take responsibility for organisations they lead. But let's revisit what Boris Johnson said in Parliament. It was personal.
He spent most of his time prosecuting journalists and failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile.
Next, here's another defence of the Prime Minister from Cabinet Minister Kwasi Kwarteng.
In the context of the accusations about leadership, the debate about accountability, it was a reasonable thing to bring up.
It's correct that in 2013, Keir Starmer did apologise for the shortcomings of the CPS in dealing with allegations against Jimmy Savile, but he didn't apologise for his personal conduct. And then here is a further defence of Mr Johnson from Minister Chris Philp again.
I'm saying it was capable of being misconstrued. I mean, it was the words on the face of it were correct, but it was capable of being misinterpreted.
It's not only misinterpretation, though. There's no evidence to support Boris Johnson's claim about Keir Starmer and Jimmy Savile. Mr Philp went on.
And that's why Boris Johnson was very clear and clarified exactly what he meant a couple of days later, which was the right thing to do.
It's right that Boris Johnson did seek to clarify what he'd said in this interview on Thursday.
I'm talking not about the leader of the opposition's personal record when he was DPP, and I totally understand that he had nothing to do personally with those decisions. I was making a point about his responsibility for the organisation as a whole.
A clarification, but not a retraction or an apology for the original claim. And the Tory MP Julian Smith now argues it's really important for our democracy and for Starmer's security that the false Savile slurs are withdrawn in full. That's what the opposition wants too.
It's Trumpian-style politics and legitimises the sort of political discourse that isn't what we like or deserve in this country. And I believe he should come to the House of Commons and apologise unreservedly for the slurs that he made last week.
This, though, is Chris Mason's assessment of the chances of seeing an apology on Tuesday.
Absolutely zero. It is not going to happen.
As well as that, a Downing Street source told the BBC he's got other stuff to get on with today. And as all sides traded political blows this week, there was a new arrival in Westminster. Last year, the Conservative MP David Amess was stabbed to death during a constituency surgery. Now Anna Firth has been sworn in as his replacement. And while Parliament welcomes its newest member, there are sharp differences over where to set the limits of political discourse.